the area is doing this. On the live news line from the Texas Public Policy Foundation, friend of the Todd and Oz Show, Mr. James Quintero is with us. James, good morning.
Hey guys, good morning.
Yes, sir. Catch us up to date. What's going on with all of these school districts and incredible wasteful spending and digging even deeper into our pockets?
Well, you're absolutely right. All around the state, we have a number of different school districts who are adopting tax rates that are higher than they should be. And in some cases, like with Austin ISD, they're seeking voter permission to exceed the property tax revenue limitation that the legislature established in 2019. Now, in Austin's case, what's interesting to note is property taxes are already through the roof. Travis County's got some good data that suggests the average homeowner in the area is already paying about $9,000 in taxes. With Austin ISD's tax increase, if it's approved, and I suspect it will be, that's another $400 added to that $9,000 total. And oh, by the way, you have lots of other local governmental entities, namely the City of Austin, Travis County, and Central Health, which are all pursuing their own tax increases, which at the end of the day means another $1,000 in new taxes for the average resident.
Hang on a minute. The mayor says it's about affordability. We're trying to make the city more affordable.
Well, and that's what's so curious about progressives is they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk, right? You know, I've seen so many comments over the years from very left-leaning local officials who acknowledge that we have an affordability crisis, and then almost in the same breath say, well, also, we're going to raise your taxes. And it's just so frustrating. And what it signals to me is that we have an obvious need for the legislature to act and to establish some very reasonable spending limits so that we can begin to get property taxes under control in our cities, counties, and school districts.
Do you mean how we fund public education, this recapture, that sort of thing? Because all of these school board members, they're all progressive, and they all blame Governor Greg Abbott, who's keeping money away from kids.
Yeah, I actually blame the federal government, and here's why. You know, a lot of years ago, Congress passed the American Rescue Plan Act, and what that did is it dumped an absolute hoard of federal tax dollars into our local government systems. And what our local officials did is instead of using that one-time money in a temporary fashion, they built it into their budgets, and they started using it on an ongoing basis. And now what's happened is that all of those federal dollars are getting ready to be exhausted, and you have a lot of school districts and cities in particular who are now running around like the sky is falling because all of this pandemic aid is expiring, and they want to continue the spending spree.
They got hooked on it, and they always knew it would go away, but they used it to craft and manipulate the people as an expenditure that's going to be here forever. And they were wrong. It's deception is what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's another reason why I think the legislature needs to impose something known as a third-party efficiency audit requirement on our cities and school districts. And what that means is basically we need to get an outside set of eyes looking at Austin ISD and the city of Austin's budgets and figure out what are we doing wrong and how can we do it better, and then requiring those political subdivisions to take up those recommendations in a hearing and figure out, okay, we're going to do this and maybe we're not going to do that. But we've got to get some outside eyes on the books, because right now the direction that things are going means that we're going to experience property tax increases in perpetuity because these guys have no restraint.
I think the biggest complaint is folks just don't see the return for the investments. We keep hearing that the kids are falling behind and don't read on grade level, and you hear all the chaotic stories and the BLM flags and the rainbow flags in the hallways of our schools. The people, the taxpayers, just don't feel like they're getting any kind of bang for their buck.
You're absolutely right. If you look, if your audience wants to go to txschools.gov, you can actually look at the academic performance of any school district in the state. And if you look at Austin ISD in particular, what you note is that only about 50% of students can read, write, and do math at or above grade level. That is absolutely abysmal, especially when you consider how much money we're spending. And oh, by the way, parents have taken notice of this too, because if you look at the enrollment trends within Austin ISD, you can see there's a very obvious decline. In fact, the district has lost about 10,000 students over the last 8 or 9 years. So, parents recognize that they're not getting a good value for their dollar, and they're pulling their students and going elsewhere.
Look in your files there. Is there something outrageous when it comes to school spending that stands out to you? Because AISD is not the only one. Just about every school district in the area has got a bigger budget and a bigger tax rate. What are some of the crazy stories you've heard out there? Like that water park in South Texas? That's one.
I could probably bore you all day with crazy school expenditures, but the one that really gets me every time is the amount of money that we pay our school superintendents. These are supposed to be public servants who are more interested in seeing better student outcomes than they are at getting rich. But unfortunately, we have a lot of school superintendents who actually earn a greater salary than the President of the United States. And, of course, the President is paid $400,000 a year. In fact, the highest paid superintendent in Texas as of last year was a gentleman out of Cypress Fairbanks ISD near the Houston area, and he was pulling down about $535,000 in base salary alone.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't account for any of the benefits, health care, retirement, housing allowance, car allowance, cell phone allowance. You go on down the list. These guys are absolutely raking it in. And, oh, by the way, there's no obvious ROI there to me. We're not seeing the sort of student outcomes that we ought to be seeing when we're paying such excessive salaries.
And it appears it's kind of become a circuit job too. You know what I mean? Like a city manager. They're here for a couple of years, just like our superintendent here in Austin, who's now the superintendent up in Dallas. Mm-hmm. They kind of stay in one city, one school district for 3, 4, 5 years at the most. Get that golden parachute, and then go on to even bigger bucks at the next school district. It's a real circuit.
You're absolutely right. It's a circuit. These guys get shuffled around from one district to the other, and when they've gotten tired of their job, they take a government-provided golden parachute and they go to the next position. And just to give your audience some sense of what kind of golden parachutes a lot of people are seeing. There was one gentleman in Lancaster ISD, which is going up towards the Dallas area. He got in trouble because he had a $2 million severance payment that he tried to walk away with, and there was such public outcry that a couple of trustees actually initiated a lawsuit against him. But, I mean, that's the sort of stuff that is possible.
Talking with James Quintero with the Texas Public Policy Foundation, kind of focusing on education this morning. But let me ask you this as we wrap up, James. Look into your crystal ball, the next legislative session about school vouchers or school savings accounts. What are the possibilities? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're on the cusp of some truly transformational reforms, including school choice and walking further down the road of property tax elimination. In fact, that's one of my great hopes is that the legislature will continue to do what it did in 2023 with respect to rate compression. So what we're hoping is that the legislature will use surplus tax dollars to permanently lower the school district maintenance and operations tax rate in such a way that we ultimately hope to get to zero and then keep it there. But again, based on what's happening today, it's very obvious to me that we need to pair tax relief with tax reform, because unless the ledge can get spending and taxes under control, really what they're doing is only a temporary reprieve.
James, thank you, man. I appreciate checking in with us this morning. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Guys. James Quintero with the Texas Public Policy Foundation. It is 9:14 here at KLBJ.
The Todd and Oz Show.